Ah, the satisfying sounds of more sales in your business. And from the sound of it, your business is growing. But you shouldn't have to pay more to scale your business. With Stamps.com, you can import orders from wherever you sell online, find the lowest rates with the fastest delivery times, and instantly deliver tracking updates to your customers and stock up on supplies. Get started at Stamps.com today with code PROGRAM for a 4-week trial, free postage, and a digital scale.
Paul Mills joins us, Wichita State head men's basketball coach. I'm sure you're excited about Christmas, Coach Mills, but you have a little business with Kansas State coming up Thursday night up at the T-Mobile Center in Kansas City. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Great, Bob and Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you. That game against Southern Illinois over the weekend, I expected that to be a tussle. I'd heard a lot about Xavier Johnson. I think he even surprised me. That's one of the best players in the country. I've been curious to know your feelings about him since that game was played. What did you think of his performance?
Well, really, really good player. And, it was Manu Ginobili back in the day when he played for the San Antonio Spurs, the lefty that you always had to pay attention to and had to be on high alert. You always knew he was going left. And at the end of the day, you really couldn't do much even to stop it, even though you kind of knew how dominant of a hand he had when he went in that direction. I felt that same way about Xavier Johnson, really good with the ball in his right hand. And as much as we tried to prevent him from getting to his dominant hand, if you look at the last two shots, both of them are going right. So he's just one of those players that's really difficult to contain. I know he's leading the country in scoring with Zach Edey, number 2. And people probably know about Zach Edey, but I think others will soon figure out about Xavier Johnson, and not only his ability to drive and his ability to shoot, but he gets more than 5 assists a game. So he was a total package.
As a coach, what's your perspective on how that happens exactly? Because he's a guy who played an entire collegiate career, basically. He's a graduate student, and he averaged 7 points last year. How does a guy go from that to being the leading scorer in the country? Had you watched film on him previous to this year to see any changes?
I didn't see anything previously because I didn't watch the film, but I will tell you that a lot of players, they get better, obviously, the more they play and the older that they get. I remember Rick Barnes, the head coach at Tennessee, is a good friend, and he would tell me how Kevin Durant would lose every one-on-one game. And he would be playing against older guys, and I was like, man, if Kevin Durant is losing one-on-one games at 18, there's a stark difference between 22 and 23-year-olds sometimes. And so you have a player in Xavier Johnson who's a really good player, who's in his 5th year of playing college basketball, being at a really good program in George Mason, and then as a year at Southern Illinois in order to figure things out, and then obviously really emerged. And some of that may be understanding more of the reads that are required and what they do offensively, but a lot of that's just experience and age.
Paul Mills, our guest, Wichita State men's coach, K-State next on the docket Thursday night, 7:30 tip up at the T-Mobile Center in Kansas City. You speak of players improving, and, of course, we don't have much of a point of reference for Colby Rogers, who, by the way, lit it up in the second half in that win over Southern Illinois. We do, however, with Xavier Bell and Kenny Poto, both of whom have been different players this year. They appear to be much more comfortable, more confident. Talk about their development.
Well, I can't really speak on that because I don't know much about what they were previously. I've heard people tell me that, certain players have made strides, but it's probably like being around your children every day. When people see them, they're like, oh, they're getting so big, and you're around them every day, and they look the same to you. You really can't tell the difference. And, whether it be Quincy Ballard or Kenny or Xavier, I just see them every day in practice, and I know that they put in time. I know this is important to them. I know that they are extremely coachable, and they care about doing the right things on and off the court. And so that's usually a pretty good formula for getting better. Everybody's probably going to make strides minus some injuries. And those guys have made strides, but I'm just not familiar enough where they were a year ago to where they are now to really give you much of an educated statement on that.
So yeah, they are a lot better, to say the least. So how did it go for you as someone with a pretty set rotation, trying to figure out where Ronnie DeGray fit into that? I'm sure you had thought about it previously, just in case he perhaps got the waiver and became eligible. But what went into that decision making there, and what did you think of him the other night? Obviously, made the game-winning defensive play.
Yeah, knowing all of this went down on Tuesday, and we met Tuesday once we kind of knew what was going on and how this could be a really good chance based on everything that we had heard, and met for about 2 hours. Just where does Ronnie fit in? How many minutes do we think he's going to play? All right, if we think he's going to play, X amount of minutes, where X amount of minutes being taken from, because it's going to impact somebody and where, It probably doesn't do us a lot of good to say it impacts Quincy Ballard simply because we weren't going to play him at that position, or Xavier Bell because we weren't going to play him at that position. So going through, met for about 2 hours, came to an arrangement. Then we heard about the 14-day window, and it was like we wasted 2 hours. And then all of a sudden it changed, and you know what? They're actually going to be eligible. So about 11:30 on Friday night, I was trying to pull up those notes that I had torn into pieces in a trash can. I was up here going through it and like, oh, do I have that information that we previously wrote down? But I thought Ronnie's first game, I told him kind of where he would come in and just told him to expect this, be ready for this. And he came in and did better than played more minutes than I anticipated him, but I go back to that final play to where he has the block shot on Xavier Johnson in order for us to secure the victory. He has defensive versatility. He can guard a number of players and has the ability to switch out, and he also has the physicality in order to even match up against bigger players. And then we knew his ability offensive rebound, obviously having 4 of them in the first half, that led to not only extended possessions, but possessions that we ended up scoring on. And just a tremendous job in his reads and everything that he's done. So he'll get better as the year progresses as well.
Talking with Paul Mills, Wichita State. So Colby Rogers, we knew we expected him to be an offensive force, but we really have seen him at times take over games. He did take over the game in the second half against Southern Illinois with his shooting. It was like everything he put up was going to go in. How often do you see that in practice? Do you think he's a player that has, I don't know how to put this necessarily, do you think there's more there? Do you think he can give this team even more than he's given it so far?
There's definitely more there. He's pretty untapped in regards to his ability, and I would tell you that he can probably do a lot more on the ball. I thought one of the things that triggered his ability to put points together in that spurt was Kenny Poto off of a post-up kick-out, ended up running the same action, something similar with he and Kenny that he capitalized on. And, once guys see 2 or 3 go in, we've seen it. And so you just kind of feel comfortable letting a player like that make solid decisions. I think so much goes into it from a film room perspective and a practice perspective that players kind of understand, when they're feeling it and then what's needed in order to keep that match lit. But the players on the court also have to understand and that ability to get guys the basketball. And then they kind of turned up their aggression, and so some other people had to make plays, which Xavier did late, and as well as Kenny just being able to be around the rim. And so I think all of that being said, Colby has ability. As he continues to grow and get better, he'll be way more consistent. And at the same time, I think he has on-ball ability. It's not just off-ball ability. He can do some things with the ball in his hands out of pick and rolls as the lead guard. So I think there's a lot there that's untapped, and he and I have had long conversations about that. And think he's on the same page as me, and I think as his career progresses, we'll see more with him with the ball in his hands at a lead guard spot.
You know, we talked, like Bob mentioned earlier, about the improvement of returning players. We talk about Colby's scoring. A guy we don't necessarily seem to be talking about a whole lot is Harlan Beverly, but how much different would this team look without his steadiness? He's a guy who can, guard multiple positions. He's got the experience. He makes good decisions. He can get a bucket for you when you need it. I mean, he's I don't know if you feel like he's unsung, but how much different would this team look without him?
Yeah, we'd be in trouble. You kind of have to have a guy who relishes the challenges defensively, and he definitely does that. Going back to the job that he did on Jordan King, not just him, but our whole backcourt just did a phenomenal job on the guard, Jordan King. And we told the guys the other night when playing Xavier Johnson, he may go for 35, and that doesn't mean we did a bad job. Sometimes players make tough shots, and that happens, but we have to stay engaged. Harlan is one of those guys who can stay engaged and pays more attention to the profile of the shot rather than the result of the shot. You can play good defense, and the other team can still score. And you can play bad defense, and the other team could miss. So we just need to understand what the shot profile needs to be. And I think he, because he's older and experienced and been around high-level basketball, he kind of understands that I need to pay more attention to the shot I'm giving up rather than the result. And that kind of stuff, when you have players of that caliber who understand that, they don't ride the roller coaster of games sometimes. They understand what needs to be done in order to put yourself in a position to succeed, and he's one of those guys.
Final moments here with Paul Mills. He's got to meet with the real media coming up here in about 10 minutes. So I have long been a proponent of Wichita State playing Kansas State and Kansas. And for a long time, the schools up there in the northeast part of the state didn't necessarily buy into that. But you got them both this year. You got them back-to-back. Kansas State this week on Thursday night. Then a week from Saturday on the 30th against Kansas, both games in Kansas City. You like playing these games? You like playing them back-to-back? Would you rather have them spread out a little bit? How do you feel about playing these two schools?
Yeah, no, I think these come at a good time. I'd probably prefer to play before Christmas break, just because Christmas is just one of those holidays where people get away and invest in the holiday, and completely understandable. And sometimes when they come back, it may take a week or two before they get back to a situation. It's almost like returning to work after 10 days, 2 weeks of vacation. It may take a little while before your bearings come about you, but we are excited about playing the game. We're excited about Thursday night. We're excited about the Kansas game on the 30th. Having it played in Kansas City is fine by us. The only preference I'd have is Coke Arena, but we'll get the K-State Wildcats here next year.
All right, well, good stuff. We appreciate it. Good luck on Thursday night against K-State, and then have a great holiday.
Gentlemen, thanks so much for having me. Merry Christmas.